Hi everyone, I'm Jake Dollarhide, a member and a board member of the Tulsa Press Club. Welcome. Thank you for coming out for the Page 1 luncheon. I'm pleased to introduce our speaker today. Former University of Tulsa quarterback Bill Blankenship was promoted as a 28th head coach in school history on January 14, 2011. Coach Blankenship spent the last 4 years as assistant coach for the Golden Hurricane, returned to his alma mater in January of 2007 to coach the wide receivers. In 2008, Blankenship was named special teams coordinator. In 2009, had the responsibilities of running backs coach as well. Before entering the collegiate ranks, he spent 22 years as an Oklahoma high school football coach, and boy, was he a good one. Of those 22 years, 14 were spent at Union High School, where he compiled an impressive record of 154-26. His teams made the state playoffs all 14 years. He appeared in 7 state championship games, and he won 3 state championships, 6A titles in 2002, 2004, and 2005. With TU football, the future's now, as proven by the season's non-conference schedule. And please join me in welcoming Coach Blankenship.
Appreciate it, Jake. I'm telling you, I get to go out and speak a lot, and I need to take Jake along to do the introductions because that's pretty darn good. In fact, I think you even embellished a little bit, which I really personally appreciate. I am very honored to be able to continue to get out and visit and to be at the press club and be able to share with you guys a little bit of what we're about at the University of Tulsa right now, and excited to brag on our guys and brag on our program and our university and our city. And so every chance I get, I'm trying to get out and tell the story. And that's what I'm here today to do, and hopefully you'll share with me some of that information, and then also maybe ask some questions at the end. But I always like to make sure that you know a little bit about where I came from. I'm very proud to be from Spiro, Oklahoma, that major metropolitan area down in southeastern Oklahoma. I was very fortunate as a senior in high school to have a coach named F.A. Dry come sit in my living room and offer me a scholarship to come to the University of Tulsa. At the time, I didn't realize that he would probably begin to shape who I was and what I would become, and in many ways, my coaching philosophy. I was reminded of that yesterday. Somebody was I was doing an interview, and the lady asked me to talk a little bit about how you've developed your philosophy of coaching and how you coach. And I'll never forget F.A. sitting in that living room and looking me in the eye and say, if you come to Tulsa, we're going to throw the football. And he said, nobody yells at our quarterbacks except the quarterback coach. And he said, I'm the quarterback coach. And he said, and I don't yell. And I thought, well, that sounded like a pretty good plan. I was okay with not getting yelled at. He said, now I may walk over and whisper in your ear to get your head out of your butt, but I will not yell at you. And I said, well, that's all right. And sure enough, and the only reason I share that is whether it was because of that or not, but that's kind of began a little bit of my coaching style. Not a screamer and a hollerer, but I think you could talk to the guys that have played for me. I think that I find a way to communicate when to remove their head if it's necessary, and make sure that they're aware of that. Very blessed also that my first quarterback coach was a guy named Jerry Rome. Those of you from Tulsa are very familiar with that name. So there was a beginning of football legacy, so to speak, that I got in coming to the University of Tulsa. Now, the era, for those of you that are my age or older or don't know any better, but the era was the 70s. And in the 70s, wishbone was king. And I was a wishbone quarterback in high school. And to the interesting thing, to get to come to a place that was throwing the football, and obviously it had started way before we got there. And the passing game had really become something that the University of Tulsa was identified with, especially through the 60s and then into the 70s. And I tell people all the time that I find it interesting that today, what's now called the West Coast offense, we were really running at the University of Tulsa back in the 70s. And so when I was given the choice of going to continue down a path as to run the wishbone, I tell people all the time, the reality was, and Coach Dry and Coach Cooper and everybody that ever coached me would tell you I was incredibly lacking in speed. I would tell people I couldn't run out of sight in 3 days, and that is absolutely the truth. So I knew in my own life that wishbone was not what I needed to do. I needed to throw the football. Well, after 2 years, my coach left me, and he left the rest of us and took another job. And so we went through a process not unlike what our players have gone through this year, and that's that trying to adjust to a new coach and a new way of doing things. And John Cooper came in, and I'll be honest with you, at the time I didn't like him very much, and not because, but you know, that he was doing anything wrong. He was just different from my coach, and my coach was all about, you know, quarterbacks, and we do it this way. And Coach Cooper was a defensive guy and came in with a different philosophy, and we were all going to lift weights, and we're all going to do the same kind of work. And I found out as 3 years went by that really works as well. And in fact, I learned a lot from Coach Cooper and his staff. My last quarterback coach that he hired my senior year was a guy that he hired out of Claremore High School, a guy named Larry Coker. Coach Coker wound up coming to Tulsa. I got to spend a year under his tutelage. He went on, as many of you know, to coach at Oklahoma and Oklahoma State. One of a small group, kind of ironically, I tell people all the time, there's a small group of coaches that have coached at all three of those universities here in this state. Larry Coker being one. Bill Young, who's at Oklahoma State now, also coached at Tulsa and Oklahoma. And then I recently hired Denver Johnson. And Denver's been the offensive line coach now at all three of those schools in this state. So I think that's kind of an interesting scenario. But anyway, getting back to my story, those were the men that influenced me and really kind of shaped my coaching style and coaching philosophy. And then as Jake shared with you, obviously I went into high school coaching and spent quite a few years doing that. And then later on had an opportunity. Todd Graham gave me this chance to come to my alma mater, a place that I love, and to plug in again. And I jumped on that, and our 4-year ride has been nothing short of just breathtaking. To be a part of this university during a run where we have been able to put together back-to-back 10-win seasons. Out of 4 years, we had double-digit wins 3 of those 4 years. Even with our less than stellar year added in, we've averaged 9 wins a season over the last 4. Last year, to go into South Bend, Indiana, and beat Notre Dame, to go into Houston, come away with a win at Houston, to go to University of Hawaii's home in Hawaii to play the Sheridan Hawaii Bowl. I tell people is nothing short, I believe, of you know, pretty much like Custer upsetting the Indians at Little Bighorn. I mean, to win on the islands in that kind of environment versus those guys was a huge accomplishment for our players. Our players finished the season in the top 25, which is a great boost going into the off-season. We have 10 starters or 10 guys that have started back on the offensive side of the ball. We've got 8 on the defensive side. We've got our kicker back. We've got our snapper back. Feel like we have a veteran team, and we need that veteran squad. We need that leadership. Without a doubt, I believe that we have the most exciting player in college football playing for us. And I know I'm supposed to say arguably, but my opinion is we have the most exciting player in college football playing for us. He is, as many of you know, already leading the NCAA history books as the all-time all-purpose yardage leader, and that's in NCAA history. And Damaris Johnson still has a year to play. And so we're so excited to have that guy. He returns kicks, punts, you hand him the ball, you throw him the ball. He has a way of making coaches look good, so I'm going to try to keep getting that ball to him. G.J. Kinney returns as our quarterback for his 3rd year as a starter. You cannot underestimate what it means to have a leader with experience. There's no shortcut to playing the game. There's a few people in here that have played quarterback, and there is just no shortcut to experience. You'd love to be able to open that head up and pour it in, but when they haven't played, they haven't played. But GJ is a guy now coming back into his senior year, coming off of 2 years of starting and taking some beatings in some games, and also going into some hostile environments and coming out with a win. So I'm excited that he's part of the group that's leading us. On defense, Cornelius Arnick Our inside linebacker is in a third year as a starter. I think he is really one of the guys we rallied behind on defense. Had a tremendous game, not only at Notre Dame, but in Hawaii as well. That guy is the one leading our offseason for our defensive unit that actually holds a couple of freshman All-Americans, named to different teams, that I'm very proud of because they're local guys as well. Marco Nelson from Glenpool and Sean Jackson from McLean High School. So we're excited that we have been able to build a program by recruiting all around everywhere, but really focusing within, I think even Coach Craigthorpe, you say, a gas tank away. And we've been able to circle the wagons in Oklahoma and get some really good players and reach out into East Texas and North Texas, Dallas-Fort Worth area, and then even, we'll spot recruit around the country. But I'm excited that, honestly, very partial to the fact that we have a lot of Oklahomans on our roster. I think it's important to this city to know how many of our players that are on scholarship are from this area and from Oklahoma. I say all the time, I would compare the rosters. There are state schools that have our Oklahoma name in them, and we have many more Oklahomans on our roster. Why is that a big deal? I think that's what people around this area should rally behind. Come see our players, and they're exciting players, just like Marco and Sean. Have the people ask me about the schedule. One of the most common questions is, did you know about schedule when you got hired? No. Would have taken it anyway. But we're really excited about the schedule, and we'll probably have a chance to talk about that a little more. But I think we've figured out a way to get more people cheering and rooting for the Golden Hurricane than we've ever had, in the history of the program. And it's not because of my leadership. My mom or dad would have liked to have said that. My wife would say that occasionally, but it has nothing to do with that. It is because of the schedule. Because when we go to Norman and open up there on September the 3rd, I have been reasonably assured all over this state as I go and tell the story that all the Cowboy Nation around is rooting for us to beat Oklahoma on September the 3rd. And then every Sooner that I've ever met is rooting for us and even saying they're praying for us to beat the Cowboys on September the 17th. And I haven't found anybody in Oklahoma that doesn't like or that likes Boise State. And so we're pretty sure that they're all rooting for us when we go to Boise State. So we're just trying to rally that feel good and get people behind the Golden Hurricane and come out and watch us play. We think we've got a great home schedule. And it's been exciting to see the people that are, rallying up and buying season tickets and saying they're going to support us. And so I really can't wait for the season to get started.